Hello everyone and welcome to the weekend video. Nothing unusual as it seems from the start. I've made another hairstyle, and the specific thing that I want to go on about this time is more detailed rigging and a bit more about the actual making the hairstyle itself. So the base is very much the same as usual. The whole video would be about 3 hours without speeding up. And as you can see, we are at basically 20 minutes. So longer video as usual. Yeah, the hair itself is very much the usual thing. I did a tube. I extruded some of the faces from that tube and then put it on the head. One thing that is different from usually from normally is that I have only 3 tubes for this that are on the head. The reason for that is twofold. For one, I noticed that when I do the extruded tubes thing that I usually do for hair, and I make like 6-7 tubes per side of the head, like left and right, which then doubles to like 10-12 tubes. It looks weird. It kind of has too much detail sometimes. So I try to like go with less, just have a few extrusions and see if how that works, and I'm happy with how this looks. The other thing was that I wanted to do a braided hairstyle. This is for a project in working together with a friend who is drawing stuff, and I wanted to, as an homage, make one of these drawings into a 3D render, for which I needed the braided hairstyle with 2 braids on the back, and this is what I basically why I did this specific hairstyle. And one thing that I wanted to do is actually braid this hair. And this is interesting because I am able to braid hair even though I don't have any more hair. I am well aware of that. Don't tell me, I know. The issue is that I decided I'm going to actually braid the hair, and this is much more complex than I thought. I basically did this by hand one time. I sat down and made a hairstyle just for not a hairstyle. I made basically just a braided thing just for reference, so I had something to look at. Here it is. I basically just made 3 tubes and, well, wove them together and basically braided them, so I had something to look at while I did this for the video. So I had like, I made myself a reference, and I also looked at where does this have to be thick, where does it have to be thin, how does it look when I'm done with it. And yeah, I then used that to actually like braid the hair. I didn't want to copy paste like a specific thing I made. I could have made like one set of these braids basically, and then copy pasted these downwards and made sure they stuck into each other. I did that before, but in this case I actually wanted to make sure that this is as original as possible. One thing that I saw relatively early, like basically at this stage, is that the different loops were much different, that were in size, and this is something that whenever I do this again, and I will do this again, I have to make sure that the specific pieces are not looking too different from each other. That the different loops and the braids are not increasing and decreasing in size as much as I did this time. Yeah, I did like a very small thing for the tip of the whole thing. You can see I used one of the unusual tools here to twist the whole thing. The chamfer tool from the utilities, to twist this into itself so that I have like a good symbol. And this is like a really simple, I made a simple thing, and I made sure that this just is there so that the hair looks kind of realistic, or at least more realistic than usual. What I also did, and I will show this before I actually go to the desk part where I'm going into the rigging and weight mapping most likely, or mostly, is that I actually made new textures, again with a stable diffusion, a hair texture, a bump map, and a normal map. And here we go. The texture is 1500 by 1500 pixels roughly, and it is just like phased out to be a bump map with saturation and contrast. And then I used a filter to make a normal map from it, again with a bit of filters on it and saturation and stuff, so that it actually is visible. So yeah, this looks really good. I'm happy with this, because I tried my usual hair colors, and they were so bright, so colorful, or so bland that they just didn't look like hair, and I had no idea how to actually fit this. So I made a new one from scratch with the AI, and I'm really happy with how this works. It's really helping with my workflow. Yeah, I obviously did a bit of work on the hair. I did on the hair on the UV maps. I made them at least somewhat working, so that they are not completely horrible. And yeah, one thing that I did is I changed the hair a bit. You can see that the tails start relatively far up, and on this one I actually moved them further down, so you can see that they are further down on the head. Just for reference, this is so that it looks a bit more natural, or that looks a bit better, but you don't see the character from behind usually, so that's okay. But yeah, I tried to cover a bit more of the head, because otherwise it would look like it is just a wig, which I don't really want to have the style on. Yeah, we are at DES. I'm looking at the rigging part, and as you know, first geometry editor, we are making some face groups, so we can then add the face groups to the bones. We're gonna make some bones, so we can add this all. I was a bit distracted on the side, so I had to redo a few of the I had to rename a few of the face groups, and you cannot rename face groups. You have to basically just grab the face group, make a new one from the face group you have just selected, delete the old one because it is then empty. But yeah, you cannot rename face groups, which, or maybe you can. I'm just not. Maybe I didn't find the option, but yeah, I just basically redid that. So yeah, here's a little thing. I actually messed up setting up the bones in the second braid, in the right braid that I'm currently working on, and I didn't notice until later. You will see that in the video, so make sure that your bones are correctly aligned, because otherwise you will see a distortion between the bone and the mesh. You will see that later. The next thing I did was basically just put on the saving the hair and putting it on again, so I can work more smoothly, so it isn't just as hacked as yeah, it works more smoothly if you reopen, if you save it, if you reopen the file and put the saved work on the character. You can then work more smoothly with the weight mapping. One thing that I did is I did the weight mapping by hand. As you can see, I'm not using the fill by bone selection group and fill selected by percent anymore, because it is just too odd. One thing that I will say though, I worked this time with 0.3 sensitivity on the whole thing, and I basically had to redo everything twice. You will also see that in the video, because when I first did this, it basically just didn't fill at all and it didn't work. And when I actually moved all the bones to work on details, I just basically had to restart, not from scratch, but I had to basically restart. So I will do a tutorial or another tutorial. I think I have a tutorial for weight mapping. I will do another one, or I will at least, yeah, I will do another one and then either re-upload it or upload it as another one, another tutorial on the thing in next week, because I learned a few new things and tricks that I want to show. For example, with the Obi belt that I did last week or 2 weeks ago. Actually, I think it's 2 weeks ago that I did the Obi belt. I can quickly check. I got it to be very, very smooth, and yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, basically found out how to actually weight map good, or how to make good weight maps, so I will show that for you. You can see that the whole thing is very distorted now that I actually moved the bones. You can see that this is not really well done. It is very, very weird, and I have to redo a lot of this. So what I basically did is I grabbed the furthest up bone that I rigged myself, and then I used the sensitivity of 1 to rig the full bone, and then I basically painted over each part, each bone individually, moving them or tilting them, bending them up. You could have also seen that I actually renamed the rotations in this case. So the X rotation is bending, the Y rotation is actually the tilt, the twist, and the Z rotation is the side rotation. And this is something that I didn't do before. This is something that I will do whenever I work on, whenever I rig models from now on. I will make sure that I actually name the axis correctly, so I quicker know what I'm doing myself. And you can see that this is now getting better into shape, better into form. You can see that I'm painting a bit over the other bones as well, and the whole thing looks way better, way smoother. You can see that I'm doing the whole thing for the second axis, basically the Z axis, which is the side axis in this case. And yeah, what it does is basically it makes the whole thing look much smoother, not as pieced. Basically, whenever I did this before, you could see that the hair was in pieces, that it moved very robot-like, very doll-like, very stiff. And yeah, I basically removed the stiffness with this. Painting the twist, the y-axis was a bit more complex. I also had to make sure that I didn't touch the second the second braid, or at least not too much. But yeah, painting the twist was a bit more interesting, and I think the difference is that I can't overlap too much of the blue stuff into the other bones. So the weight distribution of the weight mapping is a bit different. Yeah, what I did is basically I bent this away so I could work on the second braid. You can see that this time I'm starting with giving the adding the full weight map. And what you will see in a bit, in a few seconds, is that the bone is actually not where the mesh is, that the bone is different from the mesh. This is upwards from the fourth bone onward. You can see this here, that the marker for the bone, the white edges, white corners, are not where the bone is, not at all. And this is due to me not setting the bones correctly when I did this the first time, because I was a bit too hasty. I was a bit too sure of myself that I would know what to do. I was a bit too distracted as well, and that led me to some weird setups with the bones. So I basically went back to the joint editor and just moved the bones. You can see that they are all just not on top of the mesh. They are a bit to the side, which then basically led to this distortion. And then I went back, made sure I paint the weight mappings correctly, and now I'm also getting the this smooth bend instead of the more stiff bend. Yeah, again, I'm going through all three rotations. This time I'm going through the Z rotation, painting everything to one axis first, then the next. And once I painted all of the one of the bones of the weight maps, I basically went in with a 0.3 sensitivity or 0.2 sensitivity sometimes, and made sure that this is looking smooth and looking good. Yeah, we are looking into the twist again. For the second braid, the procedure is basically the same, and I will show this in more detail in the tutorial, but yeah, suffice to say it worked quite well. Very happy with the result. So yeah, I have a final product, I have a final piece. Very happy with how the whole thing turned out. There's a render at the end, obviously, so jump ahead for the last few seconds. But yeah, this is the style that I made. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it is a bit of a help in your own endeavors. And yeah, thanks for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.